welcome to Artist Review. This is the May, is that right? Yeah, May 2012 session. We've just had Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully you had a restful time during that time and honored the memory of our soldiers, present and past. And we're just about ready for the summer. In fact, New Orleans, as usual, doesn't hesitate to join the summer group. So temperatures are now what we would have probably at least mid-June, and we've got them in May. In fact, as you probably know, we've already had 2 hurricanes before hurricane season starts. So hopefully that's not a scary omen of something. I'm sure it's not, because I need to go on vacation this summer. I got to go Caribbean, and I don't want any hurricanes. Anyway, enough about me. As you know, we bring different artists to you every end of the month, and we're pleased to have a young lady here today who I think first encountered at one of the art markets, and she'll give us a lot more detail about her. She is a painter, and we wish to welcome to the show Jeanne Umbenstock. John, pardon me for that phraseology. I wanted to do my best, and I should have it because I guess, is it German as mine is? Or?
It's German. Alsace-Lorraine German.
Alsace-Lorraine. Very, very
Thank you, Bob, for having me.
Good. We appreciate you coming on board. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? First of all, are you a native with that German name?
I am a native New Orleanian, but I did spend some time in Texas in my middle school years. And that's where I had my first encounter with art, 6th grade.
Oh, well,
I'll never forget it.
So we don't hold that against you, especially now that's how you got exposed to art.
No, but I moved back by 8th grade, though.
Oh, okay. So was it a particular teacher or something that involved you in that?
It was a particular type of art. I had done a pinched pot, my first pinched pot, and it came out gorgeous. And when I looked around at some of the other kids' pinch pots, they just didn't, in my opinion, meet mine, my
so
quality.
You had already had set the bar
I'm telling
on pinch
you.
pots.
I still have that pinch pot, too. I almost brought it today.
Okay. I don't know if we need to go into definition of what a pinch pot is. But anyway, so 6th grade was the beginning of your interest in art. Is that right?
Yes. Came back to 8th grade, and I had a wonderful old aunt who loved art, and she sponsored me every single weekend to go take art lessons in Lakeview.
You're very lucky there because, of course, you're much younger than I, but back in the old days, it was really hard to get for acting or for art or the real cultural things. A lot of family support. Families saw that as frivolous, not really hardcore worker and stuff like that.
And art was not offered in school, but in Texas in 6th grade, it came back, no art.
No art.
Even in high school, I think it was 1 semester, 1 year.
Well, I think nationally, for the most part, I think we've recognized our failing in that regard, and I think more and more of the art starts, in early sessions in kindergarten and grammar school, and has been formalized a lot more in the high schools, which is great, and of course following it up.
And art kept me in school.
I'm sorry, say it again?
Art kept me in school.
Really?
It made me go to UNO. I did not like academics, but I love my art.
But you loved your art.
They offered art there.
And that's weird because some of the artists and musicians especially seem to say, well, I dropped out because my passion was music or art, and it wasn't getting enough. I was not wasting my time, but I really wasn't developing as an artist till I got away from it. So this is a good testimony.
I got through my prerequisites and struggled through my histories and my geographies, but when it came to art class, I was always there and always producing.
Well, what I tell everyone, which is really great, is that your passion like that is a tremendous education, not only a talent, but I like going to auctions, furniture and stuff, and it is a wonderful testimony to 2 things. One, history. You learn different period, whether you ever learned it in school or not. You learn French periods, American English periods. So you learn what periods each furniture, all the art was developed, and so it's a great educational. So, and there's a lot of other things you do, and it's the same thing what you're saying. So historically, you learn about your process and your specialty, so you become a better person in regard to understanding as well as reflecting your talent. Okay, now let's, I think we've gone over a lot of art history there. Maybe we didn't need to do that as usual. That's me. Let's go ahead and tell the folks, like I say, where they can see you? And I know, obviously, as I said in the beginning, some art markets. Where can they see some of your work in the flesh?
Yeah, I've been at the art market since last June, the last Saturday of every month, the Arts Market of New Orleans. But I'm taking a little break during the summer to get ready for a solo show next springtime.
For those who don't know, that's the art market that's in Palmer Park on Claiborne and Carrollton. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, that used to be the original Mid-City Market. Then it moved to the City Park after Katrina, and then finally settled over there. And then now Mid-City has their own little market. So anyway, it's certainly for the artist community. I think it's the largest. I really do. Some of the others have a lot of variety, but not so much special. This one seems to specialize in art. And I know we've met in the last few years, many of our participants here on the show from that particular market. So we were glad to certainly meet you if that's where we met you, which I think I did. It's been a while now since usually people are on right away after we meet, but since we do the calendar now, I think it was last fall when we met? I think it was
last fall.
Yeah. Okay.
I keep my work current on my blog, jeanneumbenstock.blogspot.com.
Okay. Well, let's talk more about your so you're not in the gallery, but you are. And during the summer, they won't be able to see you at the art market. You're taking a little break until the fall. Is that right?
At the end of September, I'll be back again.
Okay. Now, well, let's give them the website so that then you can tell us what's on the website with regard to your paintings. I don't know if they flashed it up there. I know they have it printed up there. Go ahead and tell us www. What's the website?
It's simple, JUGFA.com, which stands for Jeanne Umbenstock Gallery of Fine Art.
So you don't need to know the definition, and just if you remember the letters, JUGFA.com.
Just 5 letters. Just type 5 letters in.
And now tell us, what will they find there on the website? Will they find your paintings or what?
I have them grouped on my website. I have a web designer who groups them up for me and puts them up there. And then it shows the details, the dimensions, the medium.
But is it just a certain segment and you rotate it, or is it all of your work, or what exactly?
It's kind of a compilation of what I've been doing for the last 3 years.
So it's more your current stuff.
About every 6 months or a year, I'll update it. But it's like my bulletin board of my best works. Okay. And then my ongoing works are on my blog.
Okay. Well, you can find out about her blog on the website. So go to the website, check out some of the work, hopefully some of the paintings that you're going to see here today will be on there, and hopefully a lot others that you won't. So that'll make it even much more worthwhile for you to see. But go there and check it out, and that way you can also find out about our blog, and that way you'll keep contemporary with her. Don't forget, folks, as always, I directed during the show, we'll put the phone numbers up if you'd like to call and speak to myself or to Jeanne about her work or anything about the show. We certainly would love hearing from you. It's always refreshing to hear some feedback. But meanwhile, let's go ahead and start and take a look, because we have 14 pieces. We usually ask our artists to bring in, and let's go ahead and zero in, as we say, on our first painting, as I mentioned. And why don't you tell us a little bit about this, please, Jeanne?
Yeah, this one's called Intertwine. It's a vertical series that I did. It's got the silver leaf background with pink verticals with it, and intertwined some of the tropical yellows and limes within it.
Okay, before we go too much into scribe, I'm sorry to interrupt, but let's tell them first of all, since predominantly what media, I mean, obviously you're a painter. Do you work in one particular medium, oil versus acrylic, or you're all over? And then do you specialize in canvas versus board or whatever? And then we'll talk about inspiration and size, if you don't mind.
Okay, my works are all done according to the size I want to blow them up to be. So I stretch all my own canvas according to the size I want them to be. I don't just go buy a canvas out of a store.
And you're working in what, acrylics?
I did this one in Cassine.
Well, you're going to have to explain.
I started working with Cassine about 3 or 4 years ago. I was looking for a new medium that didn't dry as quickly as acrylics, but oils, in my opinion, take too long to dry.
Yeah.
So
come in,
with the Cassine paint, it's...
Excuse me, but let's go ahead. I need, as I mentioned earlier, when we talk about a certain shop talk, we need to define it. So first, let's spell that term, because I've never heard of it. I mean, I know acrylic, the Cassine. Can you spell that and then define what it is?
Casein.
Okay.
It's a milk-based paint.
A milk, M-I-L-K?
A water-based, milk-based paint.
Okay.
And when you apply it, it has some workability. And even when you finish with it, you can come back the next day and use some water on it and move the medium around a little bit.
Okay. And it doesn't run? It's solid enough that it doesn't
run.
drip at all?
It has some workability for a few days, and then it will harden. Becomes a permanent
Becomes
paint.
solid.
Yes.
Okay, great. And you saying predominantly your work will be cassine or no?
The first few works you'll see will be cassine
Okay.
because I was experimenting with that about
All right.
3 years ago.
All right. And
I
then-
gradually changed over to throw in some acrylics because I found the cassine paint in some areas was not as strong.
Okay, yeah.
And then I threw some oil on top of that because oil even is a little bit more powerful on top of that.
Well, when
So
we-
I'm a multimedia.
Right. So when we start introducing those other medias, let's point that out at least, so that way people can see that if they can't see on their own, they can understand that this one is more than one medium. Okay, let's go back. It was called
And it's
intertwine.
the shiny part in there looks white, but it's actually silver leaf. And I like to work with silver leaf as well. I did faux finishes and murals for about 25 years. So I have a lot of experience with doing leafing.
Yeah.
So whenever I have a chance, I use my silver or gold leaf in a painting.
I think she's looking at one of our minders certainly makes it look much whiter, but certainly one of them you can definitely see the silver leaf background, which I noticed right away. So it gives that foil kind of that shininess to it.
Yes.
And of course, we're talking about intertwine now. Are these trees? Can you tell me that?
They're elongated leaves. It's
Okay.
strictly abstract.
All right.
I didn't really want to put a lot of story into it.
Okay.
I call it a tropical interlude.
All
It's a
right.
playful, elongated leaves intertwined into some vertical frames.
Yeah, I think it's great. Once again, don't take offense because, as I mentioned, I have very bad eyes, but I often see things that some people see, but not always. But to me, this looks a lot, I'd say, about somewhat Asian, kind of exact, almost like bamboo,
A bit.
but done in a, like I said, with the silver leaf, really elevating kind of upscale chic. And but then intertwined with the natural green, so I really like it a lot because I think it has that little Asian influence to me, whether that's intentional or not. But I like that because it's wonderful for decorating either an office or a home. Let's talk about specifically approximate size on this and whether it's framed or not.
It's about 2.5 feet tall and 3 feet wide.
Okay.
It's a deep canvas. It does not have to be framed. I paint the sides of my
So
canvases.
you gallery wrap, right?
It's gallery wrap.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
about
So I think,
about an inch and a half deep gallery wrap.
Great, great. So a gallery wrap, folks, as you know, we've learned on this show is very contemporary, where the painting continues almost around each of the sides of the painting, and has no need really of any type of framing. And it not only saves you the money of framing, but also many times if you buy something already made, someone selected the frame, and it may or may not be what you're interested in. You're more interested in the topic than the frame. In this way, there's no need for it, so it's a little contemporary, but at the same time, it works well in any type of venue. Okay, so we've seen our first one. Love the colors, and I like the combination. So let's move on to number 2 and see if you can tell us about this particular painting. Let's go ahead. What do we have up here, Mr. Director? There we go.
Okay, this next one's Escalate. That's a play on spatial forms, very geometric.
Yeah.
Again, I really didn't want to have a storyline at that point when I was getting back into my fine arts. And I described the 3 shapes in the middle, a little bit to the left, as elevator shapes that go up. Go up and down a shaft.
Very nice. Yeah. I see that.
They have wavy forms of 14-karat gold in them, and they seem to find their way around the more modular shapes, more static shapes.
Now, is
around
this
them.
cassine again?
It is cassine.
Oh, it is. Okay, because to me it looks significantly different, much more rigid structure than the not only the objects but the actual painting. The definition of the lines seems so crisp and stuff that didn't look, where the others seemed to blend together on before. But so it's a great looking.
The cassine paint is a little bit eggshell finished, and I like to have some sheen here and there. So I will go back on top of it and put some gloss finishes on some parts.
Well, this is great. And I guess you wouldn't call this abstract; you'd call it geometric, or I presume I call a lot of them abstracts.
I call them geometric abstract.
Yeah, but really cool. And abstracts are my favorite. And perhaps that's what first drew me to you, because I enjoy, and I guess because of my visual acuity problems, I can see a lot of stuff in abstract, and I'm sure everyone sees what they want to see, including the artist. But that way it's, so to me, much more subjective to interpretation than perhaps the fixed structure or realistic, sort of like impressionism, but not really. But this is great, and
This one's about 1.5 feet wide and about 2 feet tall.
2 feet tall, and it's on canvas, correct?
That gallery wrapped canvas.
Gallery wrapping. Well, this is great for anyone with and it doesn't have to be a contemporary bent, because I've seen contemporary paintings in beautiful older homes with antique pieces, and I think it
Yes.
goes just like mixing furniture levels. I think it just really goes well, and I love the idea of the elevators. I was thinking of lanterns at first, if it held, but it also reminded me of elevator shafts. So I think that is really very cool. And the color combinations are really delightful. I think has a lot for everyone. It's got some of the subdued text, even the brighter colors are very subdued and mild, so there's nothing out there right in your face. Okay, well, let's go ahead and let's move on to number 3. Well, I hope we were ready, but guess there's a delay. Keep talking. That's what they say. Can you believe
The
that?
next
Telling
one's
me to keep talking. Okay, this is number 3, and here we have a frame piece, a little smaller piece, but beautiful. Let's talk about what you have here.
This one's called Paper Chase.
Paper Chase.
And this is a takeoff from what my husband and I went through after Katrina, with our piles and piles of paperwork from insurance companies and FEMA trailer papers and such.
The
They're really-
frustrations of FEMA, is that what you're saying?
I call it limbo, Paper Chase limbo.
Very cool.
So the shapes that are rectangular and kind of flimsy flying around are the papers that seem to never be endlessly come in and out and into the file and out again.
And into the vast abyss after it leaves your painting,
For
right?
years after too, not
But
just not months but years.
It's just really great. I love that. But it's set against that background, which is so fresh and revival. It's like, whether you think of it as roadways or whether you think it's a wonderful awning stripe, just really attractive. And then you've got it mounted, you framed, and talk about the mounting in the frame a little bit.
It is a Cassine painting on watercolor paper.
Okay.
So it needs to be protected. It's behind glass, and it's been custom framed by myself.
Okay.
I pick out my own frames, I order them, and mount them myself, because I really have in mind what I want around them. I even painted the gold around the edge to go with the gold that's in the
gold on the
frame.
frame, yeah. But then putting that stark black bat really brings out the colors and the whole subject matter. So that was great. Sometimes people want to go, coordinate it together, but I think in this particular painting was well to give the contrast. I really like that a lot. It's almost like a charm necklace or charm bracelet to me, where you've got the objects dangling around this semicircular or cloth kind of thing. So very creative. And what was the title again on it?
Paper Chase
Paper Chase.
in limbo.
All right. So, folks, if you ever, and I know all of us have, experienced that FEMA frustration or anything like that post-Katrina, what a great way to replicate that. It won't be so sorrowful, but getting the message across. So when you tell your sad tale of all that documentation and unheard of grief, you can always reflect on something beautiful here to remind you at least there's a rainbow somewhere hiding behind the painting. All right. Well, that was interesting. And so, again, we're talking to Jeanne Umbenstock. She's a native New Orleanian, painting in what we call a Cézanne. Is that what it's Cézanne? Cassine. Something new to me. But folks, it's kind of a milk-based painting, so doesn't that sound interesting? But she is going to be moving or adding other media to it. We talked a little bit about her website now. We'll come back to that, but I think we're ready to go. And now the next painting, if I'm correct, is actually 2 pieces. I call them duets. It's probably a better term for it. But it's meant to be one piece. So the image is continued as one masterpiece, but then done in 2 different sizes or 2 different shapes. So interesting to see. So why don't you tell us about this, first of all, from the overview, and then we're going to go look left to right on the separate pieces.
This duet is called Resources 1 and 2, and What About Tomorrow is the subtitle. And this is one of my worldview series, and I just wanted to encompass what gifts we've been given in our resources, from our rain to our waterways, fish, our lands that we grow crops on, the wind that blows the seeds across the land, and then the tree on the far right is a contemporary bird, like a mushroom-shaped kind of tree. It's got a lot of images in there that I just kind of grabbed because I felt like it meant something to me. I don't know if it means something to the viewer, but to me, I used in the background a Stonehenge-type structure with the squared-off arches, which represents antiquity. And then the modern version of that would be that the rounded arch a little bit in front of that would represent more modern. And like I said, again, the right-hand side is more of a modern tree.
Sure.
And then the moon represents that the moon has always been with us from antiquity to the present.
It's very interesting, and I love that here and now situation, or there and now, and especially putting the antiquity portion. And I saw Stonehenge right away. That was the first thing, even though it's very subtle and more of the shadow than the prominent of what's in front, the contemporary version. It really, screams out, hey, take a look at me. Now let's talk about approximate sizes. The left, which of course is the larger horizontal piece. What are we talking about there in size, please?
It's about 2.5 feet tall and about 3.5 feet wide. It's also gallery wrapped. The edges are painted.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't need a frame.
Well, that's interesting to see how, especially when you unite the pieces together. Let's take a look at the new piece, the smaller piece. What would have it? Because there almost it looks seamless. The water or the tributary continuing, the antiquities. So it would be interesting to see how what you did with the two sides that are actually hidden here. And we're able to replicate or continue that same look. And maybe you want to tell us about it, maybe not, since we can't show that.
Although they're two different sizes, when they're hung on the wall, the right-hand one is a little bit higher, where the river will meet up. The Blue River meets up.
Right, so it intersects exactly.
Yeah, and I thought it just added interest that they weren't the exact same size.
Exactly.
Right, and this is Cassine paint as well. And like I said, it has the workability of oil. So I can do some of the, in the background where you see sky, the blue sky. On the left panel, it has some of the gradations you can get with oil.
Right. And the inset on the second one really almost, I won't say, but it's so realistic, it's almost like a photograph. So it really brings another whole dimension, I think, to the painting. So really lovely, lovely piece. I think this is really well done, as I said on the first one, and very, very interesting. Your subject matters and your continuity of history there, bringing the old antiquities and replicating them with the contemporary versions.
And so the camera also is picking up some of the gloss vertical lines I put around the tree, which I guess when you walk in different areas, it would look just brown or dark green, but it depends on how the light plays on it. You may see it as silvery because I put the gloss finish on top of it in a vertical fashion.
Yeah, once again, my vision, I looked at that as this is one tree in a forest of trees, the major tree being represented with the green, but the coloring and all, and then the sun with the lighting coming from a different background causing the shadow. So I just loved it. I just thought it was such a unique thing to take something not necessarily different, but certainly different in the interpretation, and then combine it in the existing structure and have a very successful combination of the two. I think very, very nice. Okay, let's move on to another one. And this is a larger piece, a single piece again, I believe framed, and we'll see what we have coming up. As we said, we've still been doing this Cassine, which is a milk-based painting with Jeanne Umbenstock, and she's a local painter. Here we go. I'm a floral nut. I really like a lot of florals, and this is probably not a floral abstract, but it certainly reminds me of a beautiful potted flower, especially in the colors in the frame. But tell us exactly what it is, please.
It's a surreal painting. It's called Lizards in the City, and What About the Doodle Bugs? which is an unusual title, I know, but in my doodling, scribbling, I drew this and then turned it into a painting. And then the tree-like structures are really lizards, and the lizards are as tall as trees.
Wow.
And my connotation on this is that no matter how much concrete we put in our cities, it's amazing to me how our common green lizard can flourish as well as it does. In fact, there's probably never a time I can go in my backyard where there's not a green lizard darting across our paving or our fence. And then the shapes on the lower left, kind of odd-looking grayish-brown shapes, those are odd forms that are doodlebugs. And the part that amazes me about doodlebugs is that I used to see so many of them as a young child playing in the dirt, but I'm an avid gardener, and I don't see any more doodlebugs anymore.
Two things in my history that I concur with that I miss and remember as a child. One, exactly, because we would love the fascination as soon as you're touching a doodlebug that it would fold up like into its shell and make a beautiful round little circle. So it's so cool. It was like, I guess, I'm sure it was an instantaneous reaction, a defense mechanism.
You could turn over any brick, any rock, along any edge of the grass, and there would be a doodlebug.
And the other thing in the evening was the lightning bugs. We used to be able to catch as children and all, because again we had more wooded areas or more grassy areas, so not every lot was taken with a facility, a business, or a home. But they are two things that I think, once again, if you're a child growing up, you might not know about in today's world. So interesting throwback. And I'm just fascinated by this because
this one's also done in Cassine, and since it was a surreal picture, I wanted to frame it myself to just emphasize that it's kind of humorous, but it's also serious. So I picked out the frames, and the frame is kind of a really super bright gold.
Right.
The background on the painting is more like greenish gold, but this gold is more of a reddish gold. But I thought it was a little bit gaudy, but still a little bit classy, and I thought it just went really well with the painting.
I totally agree, and I noticed that right away, that you weren't trying to, again, coordinate the colors. You were really showing for the contrast, and I think it really works well. And then the centerpiece, just to me, continues the trail like an insect trail, the separating, adding more color and contrast. Anyway, I'm fascinated. I would never have seen this to be, especially the insects, because I'm seeing, not that insects aren't attractive, but I just see these as really...
There's a house in the middle with some roofs above it.
I see it.
There's a little dog, too, right in the middle.
Right in the middle, huh? Yeah, I thought that's what it was. So really fascinating. I think and what was the title? Did we have a title on this one?
Lizards in the City, and What About the Doodlebugs?
What about the doodle? And once again, the approximate size.
This is about 2.5 feet across and 3 feet tall.
Okay. So we're, again, moving along, and now we're still sticking with Cassine, or are we moving to, or adding
This is Cassine, but I've started adding some acrylic to it.
So here, folks, as Jeanne announced in the beginning, as she moved along in her chronology, she started adding other media to it and layering that on, so you do get a mixed media approach or a combination. So let's go ahead and take a look. And is this the one with the, I don't know where we are. Okay, this is one of my favorites from just the sheer magnificence of the color, the subject matter, being so bright against this black background. Tell us about it. And what's interesting is this led to something else, which is another part of her talent. She's going to speak about both. But let's talk about the painting first.
This is called Over and Above, and it's my version of that man and woman or people have been given dominion over the earth, and it's up to us what we choose to do with it. You know, we're the masters of it. You know, we can make wise choices and keep our beautiful earth, or we can throw it away in the garbage dump. It's up to us.
Now, in here we're talking about Cassine still, but what have we added to bring?
It's Cassine, but some of the shades in the background to get that really deep, dark, brownish, blackish background. I added some acrylic in the background. And then originally I had the world in mostly blues with the water. But after months later, taking pictures of it and showing it a bit, I went back with some of the silver acrylic on top of the blue to get a little bit more sophistication.
Yeah, give it a little more tone. Now, how about, but the blue itself, that is just Cassine, because that's so vibrant. I hadn't really seen that many vibrant colors that vibrant in some of the earlier works that we've looked at. So that is all Cassine colors, that blue.
It could be acrylic on top, but I always start with the base coat of acrylic, then go to Cassine, and then if I wanted to give it a little more punch, I go back to my acrylic paints.
Yeah, because that's what I know about acrylics. It seems to really have can bring out some of the most vivid brightness. And the hue of this blue is like electric blue on the folks. Just really magnificent.
I did some of the outlining with Cassine.
Okay. And again, overlooking the world, as we've seen, so it's great. This would be a great plate, I think, if someone wanted, like Fitz and Floyd, if somebody wanted to come in and make a designer plate, this would be great to have the folks going around. Okay, now, again, this is on canvas. Is this framed, and what size are we talking about?
This is the gallery wrapped canvas.
Okay.
And it's about 1.5 feet tall and about 2.5 feet wide.
And what's interesting, this brought out another talent John had been, I guess, nurturing or wanting to get into, and that is basically jewelry design and manufacturer. So she was nice enough to bring into the studio today, and we have it right here next to her. I'm going to get a camera to take a look at it. Why don't you, just leave it there. Yeah,
okay.
That's good. And she was nice enough to have it mounted. So, in fact, almost what's really cool is that almost identical colors of the paintings. Again, that coal black and the vibrant blues. Tell us a little bit about these necklaces and earrings, please.
I started doing some miniature pins of my paintings to show my paintings off. And then I don't really wear many pins. I just said, I'm going to need to make these into pendants. So I take a photograph of my paintings and I shrink them. I cut them out to size and I apply them to a background. And I sign it on the front. On the back, I put the painting's name and I put the edition number on the front.
So what is it made out of?
It's got resin on top. It's a resin piece.
Okay.
And it hangs from a sterling silver bale.
Okay. All right, so that's the painting we just looked at. And what about the one at the bottom? A necklace at the bottom?
And this is a bracelet at the bottom.
Oh, bracelet? Okay.
So
now, are there any paintings in that?
I had some clients who started buying my pendants, and she told me if I'm going to buy your pendants, I always buy complete sets with bracelets and earrings. So that got me started with collecting beads and making beads. Mm-hmm. The top are beads that I hand painted, and I put a clear gloss on top of it.
Okay.
But if you go back to the bracelet, this is a handmade bead, a polymer clay bead, and the rest are collected beads. And I'll inscribe on some of the collected beads. I put my logo on my collected bead here. I put Jugva on here. And then I also put my own tags on. I inscribe
so you customize
my tags.
it.
Definitely.
Make it a signature piece.
Right.
So very good.
It's got an elastic cord in it, but it has the catch, a sterling silver catch on each side, so you can take it off or on.
Okay. Now, I have to jump into the question before we move to the next painting. Are these also included in the website? Is your jewelry included in the website?
No, they're not. They're on my blog.
Okay, so in the blog. So, again, more of a reason to check out our blog once you get to the website to see what information you might know.
There's a column. There's a column on the right-hand side of my blog where it shows where I posted my jewelry.
Okay, all right, great. But I've been thinking about adding it to the website altogether because I think a lot of people don't go to blogs. They feel a lot of there's pro and cons with regard to blogs. People who like to read a lot are going to the blogs. People who like the pictures a lot are strictly looking at the website. So you might want to consider adding some pieces in the website itself.
I may add some pages of the jewelry.
Okay. Let's go on to our next painting. I think we're ready for it. And I think we have later on, we'll see another piece that inspired some jewelry, but not this one. Let's go ahead and tell us about wonderful harvest colors coming out here in this particular piece. I love these autumnal colors. Let's talk about it and tell us what this is. Is there any title on this particular one?
This is called Venus Meets Mars.
Venus Meets
and
Mars.
It's
That's
also
a common title.
It's another post-Katrina painting I did where my husband and I were so wrapped up in our difficulties trying to reestablish a home since we lost what we had in Katrina. And just through all this, trying to filter through all the paperwork and the decisions we had to make, there's so much lost intimacy. But it's also a take on, I find people today we're so busy, it's very hard for couples to maintain the intimacy they had when they first got married. So this painting's done, I guess, as a symbol of that.
Okay. Very nice.
It's a Cassine paint.
Cassine again.
And I tried to get that filtering look with it. See, Cassine paint, again, you can use thin layers to get that sheared look where you can see the figures through a veil.
Now, what are the like scalloped things on the edges? The kind of mirror image scalloped creams. What is that?
Is that the lines on the vertical lines on the drapery?
Oh, okay.
It's like a veil between the two figures, and the edges have silver on them, so it's shining. It's a curvy edge. I don't call them scallops, but it's a curvy
Oh, okay.
edge.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But
Kind of a curvy edge.
what you're calling curves, I'm
Drapes.
calling scallops. That is part of the painting. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And so the painting is not just rectangular.
And it's two separate canvases. About in the middle, you could see if you look up close, it's a separation between the two.
Okay.
So when you hang them on the wall, you could put them together, or you could put them apart.
Or you could put them in. Yeah, that's neat.
Which could be symbolic too.
Exactly, especially when you're talking about the couples, even more so. Maybe putting them in division as opposed to
Right.
together, or
If you're-
rotating in, which makes it even nice to keep your art viable and got a lot of vitality. So this brings a lot of options for you. And like I say, what's so nice about these, the nice subtle autumn colors will go with just about any kind of color scheme you have, and so will really be nice. Now, what is the overall size, and what do you think the individual sizes are?
It's about a foot and a half tall, and perhaps 2.5 feet wide with the two panels together.
Okay, so it would only be like 6 inches on each piece high?
No, it's about a foot and a half, maybe 18 inches high.
But I mean, each panel or together?
Each panel is about 18 inches high.
So it's like 3 feet in total?
And together it's about 2.5 feet long or wide.
Okay, all right. Well, and one more time, the name on this one is?
This is Venus Meets Mars.
Venus Meets Mars. And this is all Cassine, is that right?
It's all Cassine and has some, may have a touch of acrylic in there.
And this one is gallery wrapped?
It's gallery wrapped.
Okay. All right. Very, very nice. I see a whole different thing on this one. This one is really striking me. I'm sorry. It doesn't, to me, this is one of the few that I see totally different than what your vision is. But I'm not even going to say, because I don't want to have the viewer pick things, right? But again, the color schemes are great, so it'll go with just about anything. So that's the most important thing, is always thinking about where you're going to place your painting, so that way you can get the most effective use and view by either your friend or yourself. I mean, that's the most important thing, is for you to be happy with it. Okay, let me tell everybody before we see the next one, we're visiting with Jeanne Umbenstock, a local painter who started way back in 6th grade. It took her to go to Texas to realize she was an artist, or wanted to be in art. And she's been working in a product media called Cassine, which is a milk-based product. And then she's expanded to, always using acrylics and also adding other layers to it. So we'll discern those as we go through. Okay, I see we're ready for our next painting, and this is interesting because we had that Adam and Eve type situation a few moments ago, and here we have those folks again flying over the earth. Tell us about this. Great colors on this one.
This is called City Park Lagoon, flying over City Park Lagoon.
City Park Lagoon, okay, and I believe, if I remember saying earlier, you actually have it labeled somewhere, not just, is that correct? Let's see, why don't we go around the painting and let's take a look while Jeanne tells us about it, please.
Yes, City Park is a great love of mine. I've lived within 3 miles of City Park most of my life. Spent a lot of time there, especially with the peristyle and
That's
the
peristyle
lion,
on the right.
the lions
exactly.
at the peristyle, and our gorgeous oaks. So I wanted to do a series on City Park, and since I had done some man and woman figures, I decided to make them take off into space and have the good overlooked view, like a bird's eye view of what our park would look like. And I took also the approach of more of a surreal look.
Yes.
I'm not an artist who likes to take a photograph and just paint what the photograph is. I want to use my imagination and use my shapes and forms according to what I think beauty is. This is done in oil. I did swap over to oil.
This is not cassine. This is definitely.
I swapped over to oil to be a little bit more prominent. I do use an oil that dries in one day. I don't have the patience to wait days or weeks.
Oh, really? See, I wasn't even aware of that because I've always known that oil is the slowest, sometimes never drying, and that's why people move to acrylics. One for the vitality, the color, and two the shorter drying period. But there is now an oil with a shorter drying period.
It's called alkyd oil.
Could you spell that for me?
ALKYD.
D. Okay,
Alkyd.
Very good. So that's something.
And it doesn't come in as many colors as your regular oil paints. That's the kind
so you're
of
limited in color.
The drawback.
Right.
But then I will mix in with some of the regular oil paints, so I can get some of the colors.
And what would be the average drying time on this particular?
Alkyd takes just 1 day.
1 day. Wow.
I mean, when
that's amazing. Well, I love it because I just love the vibrancy. Once again, that electric blue. With the primary colors, blue, yellow, and green. You know, blue and yellow, I had to get a green with the black oak tree. Then in the folks, really like this a lot. It's very surrealistic, and I think one of the nice ones. And what's good about this is something that you can certainly point to our city. We're all so interested in nowadays, post-Katrina, in identifying with the city in some mode or modes, whether it's art, whether it's jewelry, whether it's clothing, where we're taking aspects of our city and revering them finally instead of ignoring them or desecrating them. So it's really nice to see this. This would be just a lovely, lovely piece.
And we're blessed to have City Park thriving and back again.
Yes, which
they've really done wonders.
Slowly but surely it's coming back. Now you can really see the progress. A few years ago they kept talking about it coming back, but it was so big we kept saying there's no way they're going to be able to get to this amount of ground, but they are doing a remarkable job.
And our sturdy oaks really survived the storm. Testament
Hallelujah,
to that.
yeah, because that was so petrifying that we would lose those valuable pieces, not only of our history, but of the beauty of the park. So, and there we go, a swan. I don't know how I missed the swan, but that's always important to see the swans and the lagoons and the little ducks. Very, very nice. Now, let's go. Did we mention the size of this piece and whether it was framed or not?
This is gallery wrapped, and it's about 2.5 feet tall and about 3 feet wide.
2.5 by 3, and gallery wrapped again?
Gallery wrapped.
Well, these are fabulous colors. Again, you would this would be great just on a white wall, I think, because it's so vibrant, really so vibrant, and just a beautiful, beautiful piece. So let's move on to our next one, please. And I know we have these characters, I think, coming in a little later, or different variations on them, so they seem to be some continuance of the theme. And as I mentioned, we're going to see some jewelry too. So that was oil, folks. So that was the exception to the rule of most of the others were strictly cassane paint, or with the addition of acrylic. Let's see, do we have our next one ready to go? If we do, let's go ahead and take a look. All right. City Park again. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's called Road to the Museum.
Road to the Museum.
It's our expanse between Bayou St. John and our museum.
Oh, yeah, with the, not Andrew Jack, who's the Confederate general? Is that a Confederate?
That's Beauregard. General Beauregard.
So this is looking from the lagoon toward the museum down that main street, huh?
Correct. And I did a little variation on General Beauregard. The horses,
took liberties with him, did
the horses on all fours, which did not suit me for my painting purpose.
Okay.
And he was also not drawing his sword up in the air.
I didn't notice about the horse, but I did note I didn't think he was ready for combat with the sword drawn. That's what it looks like there. So that's
I wanted him in a victory stance, and I also wanted the sword pointing towards the museum, which is another big treasure we have in our city park.
Oh, yes. And once again, you see the city park, presumably that's your representation when they used to be maybe done in hedge, as opposed to just naming it that.
Well, our oaks that were on, no, that was actually magnolias along each side. We lost our magnolias
Right.
Although the perimeter, a little further away, we still have our sturdy oaks. They planted crepe myrtles there now.
Crepe myrtles, that's
But
right.
for my purpose, I really wanted to make the oaks outstanding.
Be the primary focus.
And I left the foliage alone towards the very end and really didn't want to put in naturalistic foliage at all. So I did a little bit of research, just going through scraps of artwork and pages, and I saw this, what looked like package wrapping.
Package wrap.
Package wrapping, like colorful package wrapping. So I just went at it. I took my acrylics on top and I just smashed them on that top one. It looks like it had ribbons on top. And I just put it there and it stayed. And I did one application on each one of them without even going back into it at all. And I thought I topped it off. You know, it kind of spoke to me that, you know, it's not realistic, but it stands for our gorgeous, sturdy trees. It's a gift to us.
So the wrapping is still embedded in the...
Actually, it's not really gift wrapping, but
Okay.
to me, when I looked at this piece of artwork on a page...
Oh, okay. You just said it resembled
it looked like gift wrap.
I misunderstood you. Yeah, okay.
So I wanted to use a gift wrap type of style. So I took these super bright colors
Right.
and some sponges and some tape and taped up some of the edges and just kind of smashed it right there where I had left some dark blue as just a silhouette of the oak.
Once again, we have our stylized couple done in these great shades of blue, overlooking and joined together here, I guess, in unity, supporting this beautiful, beautiful scene. So once again, whether you are certainly a fan of our city, this would be a great to add to your collection, either one, if not both, of these city park renditions, because I just think the colors are so vital, and it's, again, two different looks at City Park from two different angles, but certainly representing the magnificent architecture we have there, along intertwined with the natural beauty. Okay, and I'm sorry, you probably said the size, and I missed
No, I
those.
didn't. This is one of my largest paintings. It's about 3.5, 4 feet tall and about 3 feet across.
Wow, nice,
And
very nice.
it's gallery wrapped as well.
I'm a big fan of oversized pieces. I tell everybody that's like wallpaper of today, you know, using paintings as a wallpaper instead of filling the whole wall. So if you have a nice big piece, it really fills up the wall tremendously. So this would be certainly one of my tops with regard to not only topic but also size. Okay, and this is, again, this is, what do we have, media
I
here?
used oil and acrylic on this.
Oil and acrylic, okay.
I put the casino away for a while.
I understand it. Well, this is great. Nothing wrong with the cassine, but I think I'm preferring your work so far. I think in the acrylics and the oil, what I've really seen, other than some special effects on some of the cassines. All right, let's see if we can move on to another one, because we got a few more left. I think, folks, we're meeting with Jeanne Umbenstock, and she's a local painter. She's been doing it since she's 6th grade. Started off in Texas, even though she was a native. But fortunately, she came back to us, and she displays at the Arts Market on the third. Is it the third Saturday or the last Saturday?
The last Saturday of every month.
Last Saturday of the month. Like she said, she's taking a summer breather, but she'll be back there next September. And if you've never been, that's a great place for the family, because it's one big block with beautiful trees. It's a park that prior to Katrina was really not used. And so now it's used so effectively. And of course, they have food and beverage and other things besides to entertain you and keep you there while you're there. Music, there's always a live band. So don't hesitate if you've never gone to it. You don't have to spend a dime if you don't want, but still, if you get hungry or want something to drink or just want to hear the music and see the work. Plus, of course, the artists will be certainly there, always in attendance to explain their pieces and hopefully make you happy by sending something home with you. All right, we have a few more pieces. Let's go ahead and see if we're ready to set up. Take a look. Here we go. Now we're really bringing that couple into full definition, almost natural colors, and seeing a lot more details on their facial structure. Tell us what's happening here, please, Jeanne.
This is called Falling in Love in City Park. And like I said, I spent much time in City Park, especially with dating years, and it was great just to be able to put a blanket out underneath the oak tree next to the lagoon, have the radio on, and just enjoy each other's company. So I wanted to do a version of a couple, not in a really intimate setting, but you could tell it would be a love type scene.
Sure, very romantic. I noticed any symbolism in the elongature of the couple, because they seem to be much more, I
Right.
don't use the word stretch, but almost stretched.
Right. Like I said,
as
I didn't really want to make it to be a real scene.
Right,
More
right.
imaginative
Again, keeping
than
that
real.
surrealism in play.
And almost like they're levitating as well, in
Okay.
their
Oh,
joy
okay.
and their love, kind of light.
Okay, good idea. Because
like
otherwise,
balloons.
and all the birds in attendance, huh?
Right, rejoicing.
Okay, and again, what media and what size?
This is all oil,
All oil.
and this is about a foot, maybe 18, 20 inches tall by perhaps 2.5 feet long. Gallery wrapped as well.
And what was the structure in the left? Whereabouts is this?
That's the peristyle.
Peristyle again? Okay.
Peristyle.
Okay. Very, very
With the
nice.
lagoon in the background.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful greens. Colors are really nice here. And again, continuing that same kind of theme in City Park. Let's move on because we've got
It's also done in palette knife too.
Oh, palette knife. Wow.
Palette knife.
That to be seems a lot more difficult than a paintbrush, but I might be totally wrong. But I like that, and that maybe kind of explains the elongation, even though I'm sure you could do that with a brush as well, but it kind of feels like it goes continuously with that. All right, let's see if we can move on to the next, because I think we've only got, like I say, two or three left, and we are getting near the end of the time, so we want to be able to catch them all for you before we wrap up. Okay, so let's see what we have going on next. We're ready for the painting? I know we are. There we go. Okay, now this was really, to me, out in left field, and this is way, I mean, again, returning back, a different look than when we started, and moving away from what we've seen, but still extremely attractive. Let's talk about this one, because this one seems very, very unique.
This one's called Dawning 2. I had done a little pencil sketch and then did a smaller painting, and then I really wanted to explore texture. So I took, it's all oil, did it with palette knife, and I wanted to use some collected items. I've been a seamstress a lot of my life. So I've collected lots of different fabrics and threads and strings and such. So on top of the clouds, I used I dipped the string into the white oil paint and then squiggled it on top of the cloud.
Okay.
Also, the trees are in the pinkish tones because it's at dawn, it's in the morning, so it's showing that glowing warm light through
This is
the
very,
trees.
very pretty. To me, very reminiscent of an Impressionist painting. So I'm all with this. But like I say, this seems to be the unique entity of the ones that you've brought today. Not that it makes any less or better. I just think that it really is different, let's put it this way, than some of the other ones you've shown. So I like it a lot. I think, hopefully others might also. So
I put a lot of texture underneath before I even laid the paints on. And then in the boat in the foreground, I used some swatches of sculptured upholstery fabric, dark brown,
wow.
to give it kind of a rugged look.
Yeah, you really have
Add.
well used your, like you say, your collected materials, huh? Okay, so there we go. There's a really nice one. I mean, not that the others weren't, but this is really, I'd like to say, closest I've seen today to an impressionistic painting of Jeanne's, and so this could certainly meet all requirements. Some of the other folks might not want surrealism or might not want some of the abstracts that I like so much. So this might certainly meet some of their requirements who are looking more toward the typical reality photography-based or impression-based paintings. All right, let's see. We've got a couple more, so let's move on and see if we're ready for our next painting. Now this is, again, a duet. That is really one painting, and a large one as well, but really beautifully done from the colors. So let's talk about this one. What do you have a title on it?
It's called Cypress Bayou.
A perfect name.
One of my largest paintings. It's side by side, elongated tall. Each panel is about 18 inches wide and about maybe almost 4 feet tall.
Okay.
And my vision was to show the when you're out in the marsh, you always seem to see a distant cloud coming. That rain is on its way, and also to put the cypress trees into the full color of their autumn orange and autumn brown tones. And then I wanted to contrast it with some silvery marsh grass that was blowing in the breeze. And below is the deep purple waters of the bayou with a couple of lurking alligator shapes
Wow.
hiding among the grass below.
Now, I believe is this, I think there is actually a cypress bayou in Louisiana. I'm not that geographically geared, and I was just wondering, is it named because of the number of cypress trees that are actually part of the bayou, a part of the look?
It's not that I went to Cypress Bayou.
Oh, I thought maybe you had taken a
It's
tour.
not that I went there and did a painting on it. It's just that I wanted to do a painting
Of
the bayou with
Yeah.
lots of cypress. I do go to the marshes and go and flat boating and
Oh, so you've
fish
done all that?
and fish.
Oh, okay.
So it's more of an image of my I guess recollection.
Collective past, but at least
Right.
you've actually visualized this, not just mentally, but also from a first-hand experience.
Been there.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of the colors because, of course, now using in the purples with the oranges, and I just think really are great. Okay, let's go ahead. We're really running out of time, and I think we've got 2 more paintings, so we can get those up real quick. Mr. Floorman, Mr. Photographer, then we can, a cameraman, I guess. We have so many titles here, folks. It's hard to keep up for an old person like myself. But I think we're ready. Are we ready for the... Well, we don't have that much time to stretch, so is there a problem? Let's see. We're talking to Jeanne Umbenstock,
Right, a little dog one, huh?
and
Little dog.
she is a local painter, of German heritage, like myself. Don't hold that against us. And now I think we're ready to go ahead and take a look at the next painting, because I think this is our last one, or do we have one more, folks?
One more.
One more after this. So let's go ahead. This was the little dog. This was the other one that I thought was unique to the whole series that we've been looking at. Let's see if we can get it. Tell us about this pup. Is it a relative or
This is called Brownie the Bayou Dog.
Brownie the Bayou pup?
This stems from directly after Katrina. We had put a FEMA trailer behind a house in the bayou in Des Allemands. People we never knew allowed us to do that, and this was their pet dog. And I never could not laugh at this dog, because when he come greet you, his whole body wiggled and his tail wiggled as hard as his body wagged.
Okay.
So
And
from memory, I did a little painting of him along the bayou's edge with their house in the background, and the
Okay.
cross in the background is actually this cemetery right next to the house.
Okay, we're going to have to cut short on that. Can you tell us real quickly what was the median, the size, and we'll try and look at our last one because
That
we're really
was
over time.
acrylic on watercolor paper.
Okay, do we have one more we can just flash by and we'll talk over the credits? Can we do that so that people will see our last painting? Is that right? Do you know by memory till you see that?
This is
pic-
Oak Life.
Oak Life?
And
This
it's,
is our most
again,
recent?
it's centered on an
All
oak
right.
tree, but just a vision of an oak tree, just a haze. But it
Beauty.
shows that with our sturdy oak trees, it gives such shelter and life for our birds and our insects.
Sort of like a phantom, but really beautifully.
Right. And
Okay, folks, see you at the galleries. Sorry,